We're good. Nice to see you, Andreas. All right, we're going to get started just to keep us on schedule here. But welcome to Tech Mobility Day as part of the 5th Annual TeCH Week YQG. We hope you have been able to take in some of the other activities that started on Monday. But this week is the largest festival dedicated to tech town and community in Windsor, Essex, and Chatham, Kent. For those that don't know me, my name is Yvonne Pilon. I'm the president and CEO of WeTech Alliance, and it is my absolute pleasure to kick off today's session with you today. Today's cross-border connection session has been made possible by our amazing sponsors, Invest WindsorEssex, Ontario Centres of Innovation, and the Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network, which you're going to hear more about shortly. Over the next 60 minutes, we will be bringing together mobility leaders on both sides of the border to talk about building the future of mobility and learning more about Detroit's Mobility Innovation District, powered by founding members and collaborators, Ford and Google, among many other great collaborators. While this event is virtual, we would like to respectfully acknowledge the land on which we gather today is the traditional territories of the three fire confederacies of the First Nation, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Adawa, and the Potawatomi peoples. We are grateful to work, learn, and live in this area. Today's event comes on the heel of what was a monumental announcement, a regional investment announcement, Wednesday's $5 billion EV battery manufacturing plant. This is a joint venture between Stellantis and LG Energy Solution. This means 25 direct jobs for the region, as well as many, many spin-off jobs. This is the largest investment in Canadian automotive history. If you're interested in learning anything more about the value supply chain as well as the talent needs for this industry, I'm going to put in the chat a really great report. I'm going to just put it in here right now for you, that was conducted by Workforce WindsorEssex. A phenomenal report to learn more about what this exactly means in terms of the supply chain as well as talent needs in the region. As you may recall, the region announced a $7.5 million contribution from FedDev Ontario a few months ago. Much of these dollars will be coming online in the next coming months, so please keep an eye out for way more automobility and innovation activities, programs, partnerships, event, etc. And with that, the best person to share what's going on in the Windsor Essex when it comes to automobility innovation is none other than Ed Dawson, the Senior Manager of Automobility and Innovation at Invest WindsorEssex. Ed, I tried to use my best radio voice for you, so I'll pass it over to you, and thank you again for your partnership and sponsorship of today's event.
Thank you, Yvonne. That was great. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for joining us on day 5 of TeCH Week YQG, Cross-Border Connections, innovating together to build the future of mobility with our special guests from Michigan Central. We hope that you've been able to enjoy some of the other sessions throughout the week. A big thank you to the WeTech team, Yvonne, and everyone behind the scenes who've put countless time and effort into coordinating this annual flagship regional event that we're all so proud of. So again, my name is Ed Dawson. I'm the Senior Manager of Automobility and Innovation. I lead the simulation team at Invest WindsorEssex. The team at Invest WindsorEssex has taken a concerted effort to lead activities in the automobility space, especially in the cross-border space. We have actually been leading the AVIN, the Autonomous Vehicle Innovation Network, RTDS, Regional Technology Development Site in the region, since 2018. And it's actually hard to believe that it's coming to an end and wrapping up at the end of March. Just a bit of a recap. So the RTDS was responsible really for a number of different things. Cross-border technologies was one of the big things that we were trying to focus on. And the other was, of course, simulation testing and smart traffic technology. So behind me, this image is for anyone who hasn't had a chance to yet experience it, but please reach out to me if you'd love a demonstration and to get into the VR cave. We're proud to say it's Canada's largest publicly accessible virtual reality cave that was designed for the testing of connected and autonomous vehicle technologies. And truthfully, it's been a bit of a learning in an uphill challenge for many people who have not used simulation technology of this caliber. It's powered by ANSYS software, which is a leader in simulation technologies and software. And we're very lucky now. Our team has grown. So I have two engineers that work with me. One is Akash Charavila and the other is Brian Holmes, and they both bring very unique skill sets. So if we have a company, a startup, an SME that's interested, we can certainly work with them to help bring something to life. So, you know, we'd be happy to interact with anyone that's interested. And you know, we're winding down one program, but you know, we're excited because the next iteration is called OVIN. It's the Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network. And what's different is that they are now focusing more on electrification. And the reason that's important because when the AVIN program started about 5 years ago, the idea was we would probably be driving around in level 5, the highest level of an autonomous vehicle. But we all know that there are many challenges and infrastructure challenges around us. And so we're not quite at that level yet. We see a lot of level 2, a lot of level 1 even, but we have a long way to go for level 5. So the next iteration is let's focus on the precursor. Let's focus on electrification. Let's focus on cybersecurity, and let's focus on making autonomous vehicles safer and everything that goes into that. So we are almost there. We're hoping the program would start in April. We are still finalizing the details and the information and the agreements, but we're excited about that. But what we're really excited about, and Yvonne mentioned it, FedDev funding for the automobility cluster in WindsorEssex, that will be starting in April. There's going to be a whole bunch of new programs coming online thanks to our partners, you know, through the university, through WeTech, through Epicenter, through so many of the different partners. There's going to be a new opportunity for startups and SMEs to get involved and to be supported. And so once we are able to release all that, we're going to be super excited. One little last thing I'm going to do to plug the VR Cave is, you know, when we think about cross-border technologies, we're going to talk about what's happening with our partners in Michigan today. It's been a bit of a challenge to test technologies at an actual border crossing. So I'm going to let everyone know that we're very excited. Within the next month, we will be officially launching the digital twin of the Windsor-Detroit tunnel. And what's unique is that this is the first digital twin of an international border crossing in a high fidelity, true to life, true to scale model. And the accuracy of this model is down to millimeters. And so when you think about a future vehicle or a connected vehicle, in order to do simulation testing, it has to be as good or just as good as the actual live testing environment. So we know that you can't run a vehicle through the border without so many different approvals and working with the different levels of government. So we're proud to say that we can be that middle step for companies that are looking to test those technologies in a safe, reliable, and accurate environment. So stay tuned. We're hoping that we can launch this in April. So I just wanted to plug that in. And when we talk about automobility, many people might ask, what exactly is automobility? So we've defined it as a secure, zero-emission movement of people, goods, and services using advanced information technologies. And it represents the biggest disruption to one of North America's oldest and most important industries, the automotive sector. It leverages a multitude of revolutionary technologies such as zero-emission vehicles, connected autonomous vehicles, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, and of course, artificial intelligence. It is truly where the future of transportation is heading. But before we further talk about the future of the evolution of mobility, especially what is happening with our neighbors and partners in Detroit, it is essential to acknowledge the past. The WindsorEssex region and Ford Motor Company have been making history together ever since the first Model C rolled off a Walkerville assembly line on October 10th, 1904. Since that time, our collaboration has helped launch new technologies and innovations in the auto industry that put Windsor and Detroit on the map as the automotive capitals and solidified Ford's reputation as one of the world's leading automakers. This relationship has shaped our community, province, and country in profound ways, influencing everything from our neighborhoods, our architecture, our economy, and of course, our way of life. Today, I have the great pleasure of introducing our speaker from Ford Motor Company. Victoria, or Tori, is heading transportation and mobility initiatives for Ford's Michigan Central Mobility Innovation District, which is phenomenal, working towards building a sustainable, connected, and multimodal platform to support mobility testing and seamless movement. Tori has a strong background in navigating community design and city building issues at multiple scales, with experience in policy development and implementation, strategic planning, community engagement, and placemaking. Previously, Tori worked for the City of Windsor's Transportation Services, the City of Toronto's Transportation Services and City Planning Divisions, leading transit innovation projects, smart city strategy, tactical urbanism, and public art. Additionally, as a planner for the City of Sault Ste. Marie, she led the development of a new downtown strategy and active transportation implementation plan. Tori has an honors Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Toronto, a Master of Planning degree from Dalhousie University, and a Master of Science degree in Social Policy and Planning from the London School of Economics. Please join me in welcoming Tori to the virtual stage. Tori, I turn it over to you. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Ed. It's great to be here and being part of this exciting day, and congratulations to the Windsor community for this landmark investment that was announced this week. And as you probably guessed from my background, it's especially exciting to be part of this today as a fellow Canadian and fellow border town resident or grew up in Sault Ste. Marie. And so, yeah, really excited to share what we're doing on across the river. So let me share my screen. Okay, so just to get started, what I want to start off with is really from the outset, I want to emphasize that what we're creating, what Michigan Central is so much more than a real estate development or a Ford campus. It really is so much bigger than that. And I think when we talk about the future of mobility, we recognize it's so important that we can't do it alone. We want it to be an open platform for not just Ford, but other automakers and other industries to support us and be with us in this amazing vision and task at hand. So what we're really excited about is how this platform, as being located in downtown Detroit in this urban context, can really change the paradigm and set the paradigm for the future of mobility that is community driven in terms of innovation. So first, I'll start with just a brief history on Michigan Central, the amazing stories of the train station and why it's so important. I think, we were talking about this before the webinar started, but from the Canadian side, the train station certainly has such a big presence in being that landmark on the horizon in terms of what we see when we're in Windsor. And really, as we can all imagine, it has come to be such a symbol of Detroit writ large, Detroit's rise and Detroit's fall. When this building opened in 1913, Detroit was the US's 4th largest city. It really is, anyone that you talk to, no matter, where they're located, everyone has a story about Michigan Central. In a way that very few buildings, I would say even globally, can claim. So, it being a gateway for opportunity for folks traveling north during the Great Migration. It was the place where people said goodbye to loved ones who went out to war in both world wars, and also came back and celebrated their homecoming. It was designed by the same architects as Grand Central Station in New York, which is pretty cool. At its peak, the station saw 200 trains and 3,000 people daily. And it was the tallest railroad station in the world for some time, with the beautiful Beaux-Arts style architecture, really just, well, as we all know from the Canadian side, having such a presence over the landscape that is especially interesting when you're comparing it to the cottage style homes in the surrounding Corktown neighborhood. There were 7,000 tons of steel, 125,000 cubic feet of stone, and 7 million bricks. Unfortunately, as the economy slowed, so did the traffic that came in and out of the train station. The final train departed in 1988, and then it sat abandoned until 2018, when Bill Ford announced that Ford Motor Company would be the new owner of the train station. Whoops. So shifting to where we are today. Really from it really is bigger than the buildings, and that's another big thing that I wanted to relay in terms of being a true mobility innovation district. We need this to be a place with really varied landscapes, including streets and public spaces, as well as buildings. And so we really wanting to make a positive impact on the neighborhood, but also the city at large. So what are we doing? We're creating a mobility innovation district anchored around Michigan Central Station that we are calling an open platform with connected infrastructure, innovation amenities, community engagement opportunities, and space for 2,500 Ford employees and 2,500 other partners. So what does that actually mean? Well, we want to create the infrastructure in being, physical, digital infrastructure that all these folks will need to be that platform upon which to solve the mobility problems of the future. We're really excited about the 1.2 million square feet of commercial buildings. There will be 4 key buildings, and I'll go into greater detail about the 2 main ones in a bit later. We're also creating what we're calling this mobility platform, which is the old train platform in the back, which will be a really unique public park space, but also an opportunity that has plug and play technology for folks to be able to test out small scale mobility innovation tests and pilots. We're creating new open spaces that are connected to the broader fabric of Detroit. There will be a future greenway that leads to the water and then connects around the city, the Joe Louis Greenway as well. And we're also working very closely with the city of Detroit in terms of thinking about how do we create upgrades and improvements to create a more walkable and pedestrian focused neighborhood that can also support unique modes of transportation and mobility for testing. So this is really key. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is something that we can't do alone. And we're really building out an ecosystem that we are really excited in terms of being able to create opportunities for not just entrepreneurs, but also the community as well. And so this is just a high level look of the areas in which we have been targeting building partnerships with and some of our early partners. And you can see Google on there. We're working with the state and the city as well, and also our innovation partner, New Lab. And I think the other big piece here in terms of the ecosystem is thinking about sustainability. And so not just environmental sustainability, but building out a structure, building out a platform that really sets us up for success for future decades and being able to really be a long-lasting presence in this neighborhood. So to start off with a couple of closer looks into the key buildings, the first being the book depository building. And so this was the Detroit Public Schools book depository building that was then bought by the US Postal Service. And now it's really going to be our makerspace where folks, roll up their sleeves and get to work. There'll be shops, there'll be co-working opportunities. And it's a really cool building, and it will actually be opening and coming online this summer. So this is our first building to open. You can see a rendering here of our little plaza space juxtaposed on with the existing conditions. Here's another rendering. Okay, the train station. So shifting on to some of the work that's been done in the train station. Despite COVID, we made ridiculously impressive progress, as I may say myself, throughout these past 2 years in restoring this historic building, which I'm sure you can all imagine is no small feat. So the first stage here was actually, the first step was to remove the water from the building and weatherproofing it. And so we actually removed 3.2 million gallons of water from the site, which is enough to fill 5 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And so the picture on your left here was very early on in the reconstruction, where you can obviously see that water. And then on the right is when all the water was pumped out. We introduced heat for the first time in 30 years, covering with temporary roofs. As you can see, this picture outside from last year, I really like it because it was when we were starting to clean the bricks. And so for a period of time last summer, you could see from the east side to the west side, the difference in what the bricks looked like, which I thought was quite neat. So part of the repairs that I mentioned included restoring and replacing approximately 300 limestone blocks on the exterior facade of the grand waiting room, which is that smaller, or sorry, that bigger room right out front of the train station. And so to match that facade, we actually went back to the same limestone quarry in Indiana, where the original bricks were sourced to when it was first built. And I think that's really, really neat. Some of the blocks were turned into capital stones like this one, where a stone carver spent 428 hours hand carving this 21,000-pound limestone block into an exact replica of what was there previously. And so this piece here weighs about 12,000 pounds. So this is a picture of the old arcade and ticket booth area. It doesn't look like this anymore, but I think it's just a really cool picture in terms of all of the work at hand to fix a lot of the plaster work that decorates these spaces. This is a tunnel that workers actually discovered underneath the old train platform. We had no idea was here. And so really cool in terms of things that you find and discover. And we're thinking about ways in which we can actually utilize this space and bring some life back to it. There's the Gustavino tile ceilings in the main waiting room. Again, it doesn't look like this anymore, but in terms of restoration, this was incredibly time consuming and really spectacular. I think one thing that's important in terms of the renovation is thinking about how we can really capture the reflect and honor the life that the train station had in those 30 years where it sat empty. And so we're thinking about, okay, how do you incorporate street art and graffiti into the final design actually, and maintain some of that as a way to remember that time and not forget that part of the history as well. This is a rendering of what this is sort of the waiting area where folks would go catch the trains and essentially what this will look like in the future. And here's another really lovely rendering of a potential food and beverage area in the old carriage house. And I like this picture because, of course, you get really great views of the Ambassador Bridge and Windsor as well. So I don't want to talk about the site without talking about the open spaces. And I think, as I mentioned before, these are really critical and important spaces, not just for mobility innovation, but also in being that fabric that weaves together our site with the broader community. I think the worst thing that we could do is build an insular campus or a landscape that really feels exclusionary for the neighbors in the surrounding area. And so we're building 14 acres of open space to connect the neighborhoods, provide community amenities, opportunities for placemaking and programming, and then again, thinking about how those spaces can be multi-purpose and serve as opportunities for mobility testing as well. This is another view of that mobility platform. As you can see, one exciting thing as part of the landscape, we are protecting for the return of rail. I personally think it would be monumental to bring rail back to our train station. And so as part of the landscape design, we have saved a portion of that platform that could be retrofitted if and when we can succeed in bringing passenger rail back to the train station. Some other renderings of our landscape design. Again, our landscape is a really great opportunity to really knit together the community. And I say that from a programming perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective. And we're really excited about really using landscape as a way to push forward the sustainability opportunities from ecological restoration, brownfield remediation, providing the much needed urban tree canopy for the area, and also thinking about really ambitious stormwater management programs for this area as well. So we're very much aware that we are moving into an existing area. In fact, the crux of 3 really vibrant and long-standing neighborhoods in Detroit. So Corktown, Hubbard Richard, and Southwest Detroit Mexican Town. And that really defines all that we do at Michigan Central. That is a huge lens for us. It was one of the key reasons why we were attracted to Corktown in the first place, quite frankly. So we're really working hard to be that good neighbor and be that unifying location of these 3 neighborhoods that really have been separated in many ways by physical transportation infrastructure over the past 100 years. And so that's also been a huge driver of how we're thinking of designing our outdoor spaces and working to facilitate the, the tone and principles of innovation that we want to focus on at Michigan Central. Again, we're locally driving that innovation around neighborhood mobility issues. We're not a campus. We're also not striving to be a showcase. We really want to be solving real problems and not sort of some place where you go like Epcot and look at this technology, looks great, and then you leave. The technology should, if it's not solving local mobility problems, then we are not going to pursue it. We're not looking at tech for tech's sake. We want it to be driven and woven in through mobility challenge problem statements that the local community is raising. And so to that, thinking more about how we're looking at opportunities for equity. We have a really great workforce development program in place from the for construction skill development. That's been really exciting in terms of the ability to retain local employers and they get on the ground work experience. And many who have gone through the program have stayed on and are still working on the site. We supported the city of Detroit with the successful application to a very competitive federal grant program called Choice Neighborhoods, which has essentially unlocked for the city $30 million in a number of initiatives, including affordable housing that can really help us create this holistic area and support, questions around affordability and gentrification and really hitting those really contentious issues on the head with what are we doing to mitigate those impacts that a development of this size and scale has a tendency to bring on. And then, as I mentioned before, thinking about how we can mitigate the physical barriers that have separated neighborhoods. So how can we be the nexus? How can we be that unifying area for these three neighborhoods and really make everyone feel included and empowered to use the space and even take ownership and act in the space and facilitate their own programming, really. So shifting over more to the programmatic side of a mobility innovation district, really wanted to just level set, right? I think one of the really interesting things that I've encountered through community engagement is mobility is a jargony word that a lot of people don't understand or resonate with. So if you're asking a community member, what are your mobility challenges? You will not get the same answer as what challenges do you face when you go to work in getting to work every day? Or what challenges does your elderly mother face in getting to her doctor's appointments? And so really level setting on the mobility innovation that we are keen to pursue at Michigan Central is plainly the ability to access daily life and keeping it very much in terms of language and opportunities that the community can understand, and that really impacts them in terms of their ability to get to work or school or get goods to the community as well. So in terms of how that impacts the built environment and how we're looking at developing the site, I wanted to share a few key principles that we're advancing in thinking about that built and digital platform. So in terms of an approach, really looking at a human-centered design lens, focused on problem solving, as I mentioned, as well as the human experience. And again, not tech for tech's sake. Thinking about real world conditions. And if we are looking to pilot, emerging technologies, what I often get asked is, okay, well, are you implementing, smart pavement or how are you changing the streets to be streets of the future? And though I think that's a really interesting avenue that is worth further investigation, I also think and really understand that if we want this to be a real place for innovators to test, potholes are important, right? And so we need to think about really how we situate Michigan Central as being a real world testing area in the broader context of American and Canadian cities. And that in all reality, for the next 50, 60 years, we're not going to have, digital pavement, right, rolled out on our streets. And so how do we make this really make it real world and thinking about the challenges that we face from a public works or capital improvement perspective is actually being an advantage or something that makes pilots that would be deployed here really helps them with their feedback and making a stronger product. We're really leaning into flexibility, so protecting for future use. Tech changes every day, and what my tech colleagues always say is that by the time we open the buildings, any products that we would spec today would now be obsolete. And so that's really key in really setting out that enabling infrastructure versus what I always say in terms of, we don't want it to look like Epcot. We don't want it to be this museum of a time capsule from 2022 technologies. We want to make it as flexible as possible. Electrification is a big focus. Obviously, looking at plug and play opportunities in the landscape design and also surrounding streets. Thinking about connectivity and IoT, of course. One thing, again, I think when we're thinking about smart cities or innovation district as such, we often, our brain goes to technology, but we feel really strongly that smart isn't necessarily synonymous with technology. And so let's think about, future forward green street infrastructure ways of dealing with stormwater. Let's harken back to the limestone quarry example is a really cool example, in my opinion, of how we're going back to sort of the slower trade or slower artisan trades as being something that's quite smart in terms of really solid building materials. And so I think that's a really important mindset for us to keep moving forward. And then finally, or not finally, but thinking about history of the site as inspiration. And so how can us retaining this historic form spark creativity with new mobility? And I really like this picture because this is the east side of the train station. This is the old streetcar turnaround, and this is actually where most people entered the station. But our landscape designers and our architects have been really, loving this ability to riff off of course, what the building was and what it can be. And I hope that the innovators and entrepreneurs that soon, grace our presence can also be inspired by that as well. And then so finally, sustainability and thinking about how we can make utilities and service more responsive to demand and keep ourselves accountable. And I think sustainability in terms of really hyper local in a city like Detroit, energy is a big focus for us, water, of course, and just really aligning with the city of Detroit's priorities on sustainability is something that we're working hard on. So one element that I'm pretty particularly excited about is the development of a transportation innovation zone with our City of Detroit partners. And so really what this is the mayor announced this early February, but it will be the governance framework that will allow us to really realize our vision for that real world testing and activities. So it's thinking about using the city's public assets, streets, open spaces. How do we think about fast tracking pilot opportunities? How do we create a formal and established mechanism for the community to have a really meaningful say in the pilots that are approved to deploy at Michigan Central, and really deciding on whether those pilots have been successful or not. And really taking a proactive approach to emerging mobility technology. I think, we've often seen the tendency for some emerging companies to act first and apologize later in a lot of city when it comes to regulations and that sort of thing. And so this zone can actually be this place where industry and city government can come together and be proactive about emerging policies rather than having to be reactive based on this out of left field initiative that pops up and city's not ready for it. So from here, looking at a menu of planned and existing assets that together really create synergies and a very compelling magnet, I would say, for attracting partners. And I put this picture in because, again, I love this view, this perspective. It's because it's so unique from the US perspective, but as I mentioned before, from the Windsor side, it's much more common. It's something that you see every day when you're downtown. But thinking about Michigan Central and its proximity to the river, its gateway to Canada, and really being that almost a gateway to the US when you come off the Ambassador Bridge, it really is a unique perspective and something that, now that we're in this phase of our development, something that we're really excited to work, more deeply on with our Windsor friends. So this really maps out sort of all of those assets that I was talking about, save for the river. It should be included in here as well. But creating that menu of assets is really important to us. And I will talk about it just in the next slide, but thinking about how we extend that menu of assets to include the Windsor side and really be this landmark area for international innovation. So as I said, thinking about Detroit Windsor as a combined region, which I think we already do, but thinking about extending that platform, extending those assets, not just physical infrastructure, but also digital infrastructure. So excited, Ed, about the Detroit Windsor, the tunnel and the digital twin technology that you have been working on and will be releasing soon. Thinking about governance and policy and regulatory opportunities to ideate around emerging technologies, thinking about different business models and what that means for cross-border facilitation of movement of people and goods. And then also, of course, binational startup growth opportunities. And so just in closing, I think, COVID has made it difficult to physically connect with our Windsor friends, but, looking into the future, this is something we're really excited about. And it really is, I wanted to pose this call to action in terms of, we're keen to really lean into this opportunity here in extending this idea of an open platform into how we can partner with all of our Windsor friends. And so please do reach out to me or my colleagues at Michigan Central, and hopefully we can start facilitating some back and forth visits, and it's going to be a really exciting time. And so I do really look forward in connecting with folks and creating this even more of a compelling opportunity with adding the cross-border connections. I did want to share also, before I close, one of the things that we do have set in stone already is this cross-border partnership with OVIN and the Ministry of Transportation, as well as the Michigan Department of Transportation, in a study for unmanned aerial systems. So a drone study looking at cross-border drone connectivity. And so that's a really exciting opportunity that is really illustrative of the unique type of partnerships that we can get moving if we're pooling our resources and putting our heads together and thinking about those opportunities. So I'll stop there.
Hey, Tori, that was awesome. Thank you. Very much appreciate you doing this. I cannot wait to go see Michigan Central. It's it's been talked about for a long time. So I think there's a larger group over here that is very excited to get across the border, take a tour, and especially after some of those renderings come to life, it's going to be a very exciting time. So so I think now is the portion we're going to do a bit of a little fireside. I've got a bunch of questions for you that we could probably go for a few hours on some of the questions we have of some of the things we're going over here, and then we're going to open it up to a bit of Q&A. So if there are any questions from the audience, I'd encourage everybody to please use the Q&A function here on Zoom, and we'll go through and answer as many as we can. So for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm Tom Schneckenberger. I'm the project manager at the University of Windsor, supporting automobility initiatives here locally for both the university and the college. And this stuff is near and dear to my heart, as I know it is to many people on the call today. So I've got a few things I want to start off with, a few threads I want to pull, Victoria. The first is on the community engagement piece. You mentioned a couple of things that I really kind of took away. The first is not being an insular campus, right? You're in a unique part of town with a kind of a unique heritage, both as a kind of community space. It was an industrial space, commercial space, all that kind of wrapped into one. Talk about knitting the community together and kind of bringing them into the picture and being a good neighbor. So I wanted to kind of start with, where did Ford kind of start engaging the community itself, and what did that process look like? Did you guys have lots of meetings? Was there lots of kind of survey? Like what was that process?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because it is really important. And one thing, basically the way that it worked for Ford in 2018 was the city of Detroit has a community benefits ordinance policy, where developments of a particular size, once they reach a certain threshold, have to undergo this, this process with the community by which the community identifies key priorities that the developer has to deliver. And I think this is a really awesome tool. And I don't, you know, from my experience working in Toronto and the Soo, it doesn't seem to be employed as much in Canadian cities, and is really becoming more common in the US. But I think it's a really great tool to formalize those commitments to the community. And so as part of that, there were several meetings, conversations, and what it created was this list of commitments that we have with the community. It was, you know, endorsed at City Council, and we are bound to deliver those commitments. And so some examples of those involve, you know, maintaining engagement, of course, as the development progresses, thinking about new mobility opportunities, investment in the public space and surrounding neighborhoods. And so I think that is an awesome platform or foundation to start off with, in having that in our back pocket. And since then, we've continued with the engagement, really having close relationships, going to block club meetings, working very closely with the Southwest District Business Association and also Corktown Business Association. And again, just trying to really think about how we make mobility innovation, and again, which is a very high level ambiguous term for a lot of people, resonate with the local community and get them excited about what that can entail for them. And so sure. I think, you know, working on that's a big priority for us now. And then I think, again, like the community, the train station has to be a community space, right? It absolutely has to be based on the history, based on the, you know, the huge responsibility that we have to renovate that, and the you know, the role that it plays in the collective consciousness of Detroiters, you know, for the past 100 years.
Yeah. And what was the general reaction from the community? Was it a little bit of hesitancy, and you guys have had to, you know, win them over with some of the ways you've engaged? Was it general excitement? What was the kind of first stage of that?
Yeah, so it really was excitement, and I think, you know, I started in this role January 2020, so right before the pandemic, and I often, like, coming right from Toronto, right, I go into my first public meeting and I'm like, okay, you know, it's not a public meeting unless people are angry. Like, I'm ready. And people are just so thankful that we're doing something with the train station, which, you know, at one point the city of Detroit was looking to demolish it because of the risk that it posed as this abandoned building. And so really folks are so excited that something is happening in there. And for a company like Ford to be doing that. Yeah. So it really is, it's exciting, and it's also a huge responsibility and a huge amount of trust that the community has placed in us. And so we have to deliver on that, because trust is of the utmost importance for us.
Yeah, I think it was important to see in your presentation, you know, there's a kind of a feeling sometimes, especially for those in the tech bubble, that we can see tech as a savior. Tech can be this all-encompassing, you know, catch-all that's going to bring society, but that's in a lot of cases not the case, and it can lead to a lot of kind of, if we're not careful, negative outcomes. So it was good to see that you guys have had the kind of the events and things like workforce development and training programs built right in. It was one of those things that struck me that Ford seems to have taken the time to recognize the role the community plays in you know, the formation, or this, as you mentioned, the sustainability of these types of programs. But I am curious, I'm gonna ask one more question on the community engagement side. What are some of the things that community wants you to do from let's say, from the catch-all mobility side? What are those things that they wanted to see? You mentioned, you know, light rail potentially coming to that spot. Were there other kind of big key items that you guys would hope to solve?
Yeah, so last summer we partnered with New Lab and did our first accessible streets studio, we called it, and so part of that involved community engagement of varying sorts. So meetings, they did diaries for certain folks and writing down, daily activities. And what came out of that, a big piece of that was last mile, solving for, Detroit doesn't have the greatest public transit network due to, lack of capital. And so last mile is a significant problem for folks in the area. There's a large elderly population in the area. And they need to get to doctor's appointments. So that was a really big thing. Also, the flip side of that is sort of the delivery of goods. And so what are other unique ways in which, seniors can get their medication? Is there, we piloted a delivery robot over the summer. I'm not sure if you saw that, but
I saw the clippings. How did it go?
Well, it's adorable.
Yeah.
First of all, and it's funny when you're staring at it, like it has this smiley face, and I'm like treating it like a person, and like, oh, I'm sorry, but one of the ideas behind that is could KiwiBot, deliver prescriptions to folks, and so the use case that we ran with was food delivery, but it's thinking beyond that, and the community, I think, got a real, I think it, because it was so cute, it brought a lot of joy, but it also helped people think about, these other opportunities. And I think the KiwiBot thing, pilot brings up a really important, reality in that pilots, what we don't want to say is that KiwiBot's going to solve all your problems, right? Or a delivery robot, oh, now you don't have any problems with this, right? Level setting and just being really frank about these pilots are often small scale. They are temporary. And so that means that, this is a great idea that we can test out, but we're not going to, solve all of your problems. And I think there's that balance of like, really setting expectations with the community. And quite frankly, it is challenging, right? Because, someone says, I can't get to work, and then a pilot comes in and it seeks to address some of that, but it's not going to solve all of the issues, right? And then I think also in Detroit and specifically in more neighborhoods that are potentially more disadvantaged or lack transit connections, there's almost a pilot fatigue, where it's like, I'm sick of this delivery vehicle only being around for 2 months. Why should I participate? Only to have it disappear, and there's no sustainable funding. So I think that's another
really interesting,
really big piece of this that we have to be hyper aware of when we're moving forward with these pilots.
Mm-hmm. And then I think that balance of engagement to excitement and trying to understand the root of the challenge, because in a lot of you don't want to stifle innovation by it. Like, that's the point of these areas. You want people to try things, you want people to get engaged, but sometimes we're just scratching the surface as to what the real problem is as well, right? So there's being able to peel back the layers. I would love to go down 1,000 more rabbit holes on that side of things, but I do want to pivot a little bit to you mentioned New Lab. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the partner side and a little bit on fostering both the entrepreneurship and kind of that excitement from the ecosystem of developing new technologies. So can you tell us a little bit about what New Lab's doing and then kind of how they play a role in Fort Michigan Central?
Sure. So for those that aren't familiar with New Lab, they are a company out of New York, and they really are an incubator. They do a lot of different things, but most well known, I think, for being an amazing resource for emerging companies. And so they are a partner with us at Michigan Central, and they are really our innovation partners. And so, like last year, with the studios, we are really looking forward to having New Lab continue with the sort of studio approach. It's very well, they have it down to a science essentially in terms of building in the different steps and needs, and really have such a huge catchment area in terms of attracting different companies. We had, I think it was like 70 companies apply to be part of the Accessible Street Studios last year. It was quite significant, and globally. We had applicants from the Netherlands, no Canadian companies, but maybe this year.
I'll have to change that.
And so their approach to innovation is very much in line with what we see as really making Michigan Central successful. And I think, it's deeper, it's more holistic, it's thinking about different, having this comprehensive view of problem statements versus, again, that tech for tech's sake. So they really are, we're excited to partner with them as essentially the innovation engine or vehicle to help us through.
I like that. So I'm going to ask about two different types of partners, and they couldn't be more different, being Google and the city of Detroit, because I know they play vastly different roles. So let's start with Google. In February of this year, Google announced that they were coming on as an anchor partner or a foundational partner. Just hoping, my question is more, what did they see in the initiative? What is interesting to Google, and what do they hope to get out of it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I frankly haven't asked Google that question. If I could speak for Google, I do know they were really excited about Michigan Central as a space, as a place, as and as an ecosystem. And so I think what drew them to Michigan Central, and really specifically, the site in particular, is that we always talk about all these tensions at the site. It's like trying to be looking to be internationally significant in mobility innovation, at the same time dialing deep into the local mobility problems. It's local versus global, and that's not easy. There's
I'm writing that one down.
I could have, I always say, it would have been way easier to just, go to Dearborn and build on a greenfield site, right?
Yep.
This is hard. This is always maneuvering and balancing. And I think while that work is hard, people or organizations like Google recognize the value in that when we get it right. And so that, I think, is a huge factor to why Google wanted to be a partner with us on this. And the opportunities that they've brought to the table in terms of skill development, adult programs around, preparing for future of work, coding programs, and all of those things is so exciting, and really speaks to sort of their vision of what they saw for us.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I was excited to see that. Again, one of those companies that sometimes we have to think carefully about what the applications are, but when we do it right, it can make a difference. So, and then the other one is the city of Detroit. Obviously, for Michigan Central is in the city of Detroit, and the train station has had a strong history in that area. So, where did that conversation start, and was there any hesitations? Again, was it pure excitement, and how has that relationship evolved to today?
Yeah, we have a really great partnership with the city of Detroit. They're all awesome people. I think, again, the community benefits ordinance mechanism almost, forces us to get together at the beginning, right? And so that's another reason why I really like it. It's like, let's bring, the city to the table and Ford to the table, and then we become partners. And so I think that set the stage for, we have this mutual agreement, and it's not just with the community, but it's enshrined in city, city record that we are committing to X, Y, and Z. So I think that's a really important piece of our relationship. moving forward, I think, what the city did actually was, in concurrence with Ford buying the train station, they launched a broad scale neighborhood planning initiative, and they came up with, as meetings were happening on Michigan Central, the city was developing a new framework plan for the Corktown neighborhood. And so that is a North Star. It remains to be a North Star for us in how we navigate, the community vision, aspirations, looking at capital improvements, that sort of thing. And I think, when a new development of this scale comes online, it necessitates that type of larger scale planning initiative on behalf of the city. And so I referenced this in the presentation, but what the city of Detroit was able to do then was take the framework plan, take our investment, and create this amazingly compelling pitch to the federal government, and was successful with the Choice Neighborhoods grant that then unlocked this $30 million of funding for the city to invest in affordable housing. And so awesome. It's really, really cool to be a part of that, and to have been able to use the dollars that we're investing at Michigan Central as that leverage and match to showcase that, not just showcase, but we have to be partners as part of that. And I would argue, or I think that's what made the Choice Neighborhoods grant so competitive, and why the city was successful there.
Yeah, it's hard to overstate the importance of that type of partnership and initiative. All right, and here's my last question for the fireside, and then we'll dig into a couple of Q&A. And this may be a loaded question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How can WindsorEssex not only support Michigan Central, but look to create the same kind of momentum on our side? I mean, the announcement this week, and I mean, everybody is going to hear it ad nauseum for the next couple of years, but a $5 billion investment from major corporations into this community is a game changer. It's a big boost of confidence and a kind of validation that a lot of the work that is being done by a lot of our communities and our kind of stakeholders is leading in the right direction, but also in kind of the talent, the skills, the ingenuity of the workforce here in the places we can go. So as a fellow Canadian and somebody who's worked both in the North and in Toronto and now in Michigan, what are some of the cues that Windsor can take to kind of get onto that same type of track?
Yeah, no, it's so exciting, and $5 billion is no small monetary amount there. That's
we gotta take
serious.
You gotta put the B in there.
Yeah. So exciting. I think one of the things that Bill Ford said off the bat when the train station was purchased is he saw this as the mechanism to bring Ford and Detroit into the next century of mobility innovation. And so what does that mean? It's actually, ironically, taking a step back and broadening our view of mobility, right? It's not just cars. It's thinking about things in a higher level, and what are those, adjacent industries that when you put two people together, creates those collisionable moments that really fuse cool ideas and ideas that you wouldn't necessarily think of. So I think that's a really interesting opportunity for Windsor as well, in terms of, the automotive industry, goes without saying, is so eminent, as I'd mentioned, not only in the economic development, but in the way the city is built. And so I think that's a really cool opportunity, and also thinking about how it's also like a talent attraction mechanism in terms of, you have people in the States going to either coast New York or California to be involved in these, these knowledge industry jobs and start companies and innovate and that sort of thing. And so for something like the train station, which is so, intentionally ground in the urban context of Detroit, creates something new, creates that magnet for folks who wouldn't normally think of of wanting to, relocate to Detroit, for example. And I think, again, there's an opportunity there if we look at the Canadian side of yeah, why not Windsor versus the automatic of Toronto or the GTA, right? It's something different. And so it's like, how do you riff off that 5B, the 5 billion investment, and even think bigger about mobility innovation from that perspective? I think that would be really, really neat to dive into a bit further.
Yeah, I've always kind of said, it's Austin and Miami, but why not Windsor, Essex, Detroit, right? We just have to. But I think you said it perfectly. It's the places in order to bring those companies here, and that takes the people and the leadership. And I think you guys have shown the way. Good for us to do it. So we're going to lead into a couple of Q&As here, and I'm going to start with one in the over here from John Mark. Can you expand on the tech startup side of the district? How will the district help them start and grow?
Sorry, what was the first part of that question?
Can you expand on the tech startup side of the district? How will the district help them start and grow?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I guess from as a planner, I go to infrastructure first, but I'll start there. From an infrastructure perspective, looking at what enabling infrastructure is required to enable technology deployments. And so thinking about making that connected district and through fiber and power and Wi-Fi and those sorts of things in terms of setting that platform and that stage. For helping small business support, New Lab is really a great partner in facilitating that and having the tools at hand to bring pilots online and at the same time foster other learning and development opportunities for these startups that are interested in playing in this space. And so I think those are the two mechanisms that we have at hand, as well as, and Tom, you alluded to the announcement on February 4th. What that did was create this P3 essentially, where the city and the state and Michigan Central have aligned on 4 pillars. Economic development, workforce development, community development, and the transportation innovation zone. The state is, as part of that, is committing to, I believe it's 126 million of existing and new services, specifically around supporting small startups and fostering the support that those entities would require.
Oh, that's awesome. And so there's a follow-up question that leads pretty well from your answer here is, what would you recommend or advise for a small business to become a part of the growth that's happening there, or be a part of the initiative overall? Like, what are those early opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so what I would say at this stage was email us and I can link you up with our startup contact and we can start to think about that. The benefit is, even though we are opening our first building in July, we still, honestly, we're still looking to sort a lot of things out. And so there's an opportunity here to, as we get these early inquiries to help us shape how we're thinking about certain things. Yeah. So please do reach out to either me or our Michigan Central General email, and I can link you up with the right person.
I like it. And I think this is likely going to be our last question. Comes from Nancy Crichton here in Ontario. So you talked quite a bit about sustainability, it being part of your design considerations, but also as a kind of also as an operating principle. But what does kind of mobility innovation, and how does it include designing the vehicle of the future for the circular economy? How much is that? That's a big question for Ford in general, but also I'd be curious to hear the response to the innovation district.
Yeah, Nancy, that's a great question, and I know that I'm not super close to the automotive design world of Ford, but that is a big priority for my colleagues who work in that space. And so I think, again, of Michigan Central being that platform, and not just, for example, physically testing vehicles, it's thinking about, some of the conversations that we've had with that group within Ford is how do we even apply some thinking around the circular economy that they're looking at with vehicles in the way that we're designing spaces, or vice versa. Biophilia is a really important element of the landscape, and also something that our Ford engineers are interested in exploring from a vehicular design perspective. So I think it's not just the physical space of Michigan Central, but it's that psychological space as well. And then having this diversity of people and thinkers at hand on site. So you're not just going down to the cafe and talking to Ford people, but you're talking to I don't know, a startup who I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but
working on recycling for materials.
Exactly. So it's part of that opportunity that these diverse interactions will help cultivate.
I like that. And so once again, I thank you. If there's any more questions, I'm sure we can send them over to Victoria, and then she can we can answer back. But I very much appreciate you taking some time with me, Victoria. This was awesome, and we'll hopefully follow up again. But I'll turn it over to Yvonne, and we'll go from there. Thanks again.
Thanks so much.
I get the choice of sending us off today. So again, Victoria, Tom, Ed, Invest WindsorEssex, Ontario Vehicle Innovation Network, and the Ontario Centers of Innovation. Thank you so much for participating today. And again, apologies for our late start, but we are still ending on schedule, which is great. And a big thank you to our Tech League and our leader and Tech Week planner extraordinaire, Shreya Sheth, for all of her work today. Tech Week doesn't end. We still have tomorrow, which is our tech hackathon called Win Hacks, again, aimed at solving some of the big mobility challenges and engaging thousands of students, not only here locally, but across the world. So again, thank you for joining us and the great questions. Always great to see some great community members on the call today. We have recorded this session, so we'll ensure that the recording as well as Victoria's information gets sent to you next week in our Tech Week follow-up email. A few other closing remarks. We are announcing all of our tech award winners for 2022 this week. So keep an eye out on social media. We've got a few more in store for you today and tomorrow. And with that, again, thank you, everyone. I hope you were able to take in a bit of Tech Week. And have a wonderful day, and please celebrate this weekend, this monumental announcement, and as you heard today, the amazing cross-border opportunities that we have to move our automotive and mobility sector forward. So have a great day, and we'll see you soon.